Good morning, Unlockers, and welcome to day 2 of our self-talk Kickstarter. Now, yesterday we looked at the impacts of our inner critic and how damaging they can be to our well-being, our mental health, our energy levels, even our ADHD traits, and why they are so loud with our ADHD. Now, I also wanted you to let go of any belief that you can use your inner critic as a motivational tool in a positive way. Okay, they do drain you, they will make you procrastinate more, they will make you less productive. So I want you to let go of any thought that they can be helpful for you. However, they are there for a reason, and we are not going to get rid of them. Unfortunately, they are always going to be there. So particularly with ADHD, our voices are loud for our inner critics. We've had lots of negative messages from childhood, from our parents, maybe caregivers, teachers, for our ADHD traits. We often feel different within a group because of our ADHD. We feel that difference when we're among neurotypical people. This puts our brain on high alert and into seeking safety mode. So our inner critic tries to help us by going, you must do this, or you stop doing this, to try and keep us safe. So it's there for a reason, and it's trying to keep us safe because we often feel unsafe in situations with others because of our neuro difference. Also, we tend not to accept our ADHD traits, and we tend to see them as flaws or personal failings. And let's face it, society does too, with the things that we do because of our ADHD. And the normal human response to our flaws or personal weaknesses is to have that emotional self-critical response. Now, because of our emotional dysregulation, we are going to have a higher than usual response to this. So we're going to have shame, guilt, feelings of isolation, feeling like we're the only ones, that we're alone due to this. So we're going to have a stronger than usual reaction to that weakness. So the types of thinking you may have noticed if you spent yesterday noticing your inner critic: all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking, polarized thinking, maybe filtering, focusing only on the bad and not the good stuff that you do, overgeneralizing, I never do anything right, disregarding the positive, oh well, that only happened because it was a fluke, that report only got was received well because it was a fluke, or because so and so had an input into it. You kind of tend to disregard your own input into things. We jump to conclusions, we magnify the impact of our own mistakes, we minimize our accomplishments, as I've said. We're always shoulding on ourselves. So I should have done this, I should have put the dishwasher on last night, I should have done this, I should have done this sooner, I should have replied to that email yesterday. And then we catastrophize, saying, oh, they're going to leave me, I'm going to get the sack. So there's all this type of things. And also we take our emotions as read. I feel really embarrassed, therefore everybody must think I was really embarrassing because I'm embarrassed. So I am embarrassing and everybody thinks I'm embarrassing. So there's that. We also label ourselves negatively. So I'm such an idiot, and we personalize everything. We think everything's our fault, or that party had a really bad atmosphere because it was me, it was my fault. So there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, and there's a lot of isolation. They're not going to go away, unfortunately. So what we need to do is try and minimize them, understand our inner critic, and try and shrink them. So they're, after all, trying to protect you. So the more we understand them, the more that we can live alongside them and minimize the impact. So what I would like you to do today is I'd like you to name your inner critic. Preferably not a nasty name or a sweary name, because we want to be self-compassionate towards our inner critic. So give it a silly name. A silly name helps minimize it, helps you laugh at it, and helps you kind of stand aside. Oh, look at what they're doing now. So I know one of our members calls their inner critic Lucifer. I have named my inner critic a very silly name. She's called Melinda Tossnotch. So there's comedy names that you could give your inner critic. And what I like to do with Melinda is I like to imagine her getting quieter and quieter and smaller and smaller. So you can do some visualizations to make them quiet and small, and literally imagine them shrinking. So we're not going to fight them, we're going to minimize them and befriend them. And what's going on behind some of the common things that you may have noticed that your inner critic says? So there's a lot of stuff that you can just disregard. It's not worth the investment in your time going, oh, I always tell myself off for doing the dishwasher. That's to do with not accepting your ADHD traits. And maybe you need to compassionately look at, how can I remind myself? Do I need post-it notes, etc., to remind myself to do that? However, there's other things that there may be a common theme that you might need to dig under and understand a bit more. So, for example, if you're always telling yourself you're a bad parent, or you're always fearful that your partner is going to leave you, even if you have a slight disagreement, then maybe you need to dig under any abandonment issues that are going on there, on what's going on in your childhood, maybe that have contributed to that. And that will help you step outside of this. So, what I would like you to do is to show your inner critics some compassion. They're part of you. Now, Dr. Kristen Neff, and I will show you her here, has got a fantastic book called Self-Compassion. She's the guru of self-compassion, and she talks about the 3 elements of self-compassion. I would like you to apply these today to your inner critic after you've named them. So it's self-kindness rather than judgment. Stop judging yourself and your inner critic. Number 2, realizing there's a common humanity here rather than thinking you're the only person that does this. We're all human, we're all flawed, whether we've got ADHD or not. So realizing your common humanity and that you're just a human being trying to do your best will really, really help. And that everybody has an inner critic, and that will really help. But also mindfully observing your inner critic. So rather than over-identifying and being obsessed with them and trying to fight them and grappling with them, I'd like you to just casually go, Melinda said this, that's interesting, and let it go past like the weather. So mindfully step back as if you're David Attenborough, observing yourself from a distance. So these are the 3 elements which I would like you to apply today that Kristen Neff says are the 3 main elements of self-compassion. That is self-kindness, common humanity, you're not alone, and mindfulness when applied to your inner critic. And you can even imagine your inner critic to have a little character, if you like. Now, this is Joy from the Disney Pixar film Inside Out. So you can even imagine that your inner critic is one of these characters sitting inside your head. And your inner critic, there could be more than one, if you like. And one of our members named her inner committee the Itty Bitty Committee. I wasn't going to swear out loud there, but you could give it a silly name like that. So humour them, imagine them small and shrinking, even as a cartoon character, name them and treat them with compassion, mindfulness, and realising that you're not alone. Join me tomorrow at 9:30 for day 3 of self-talk, and we're going to look at ways of inputting some positive self-talk tomorrow. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.